Hi friends, this is Yamini and I welcome you back to my channel, the Saffron Box. Today in this video I shall be talking about the transit of Jupiter into the sign of Scorpio, right? So Jupiter, as we all know, stays in a sign for about 13 months. So currently it is transiting in the sign of Libra and it shall move on to the sign of Scorpio on the 11th of October 2018, that is, and it shall pass through the nakshatras of Vishakha, Anuradha and Jeshta, cover the entire sign of Scorpio and move on to the sign of Sagittarius into the nakshatra of Mula on the 5th of November 2019, right? So it will take just about a week, less than 13 months for Jupiter to move on to the next sign from Scorpio, from the time of entry into Scorpio. Right, so we shall see how Jupiter shall affect all the signs, all the 12 signs during this journey. Now, to understand the transit of any planet, and more so when it is a slow moving planet like Jupiter or Saturn or Rahu Ketu. Jupiter, as we all know, takes about 13 months, Rahu and Ketu take 18 months and Saturn takes 2.5 years, right? So whenever it's a slow moving planet and it transits from one sign to the other, we need to watch the transit very carefully. Only then can we understand the results, because slow moving planets actually have a lot of impact on each sign, right? So imagine staying in a sign for a full year, full 13 months almost. So how much impact can it give during a period of 12 to 13 months? Right, so sometimes a transit can be auspicious for some signs, sometimes it could be just about average for some signs, and it could be unfavorable for certain signs as well. So in this video we shall quickly understand how Jupiter's transit into Scorpio would affect all the 12 signs, and you need to see this transit with respect to your mental and as well as physical body, right? So you need to see this from the moon sign, you need to see this from the ascendant. The moon sign, because moon rules the mind, and the ascendant or the lagna, because that is how it affects you physically, right? So I'll begin with the first sign, but before that I just quickly remind you to subscribe to my channel by pressing the subscribe button, which comes right under your screen on the right hand side. And do not forget to share the video with your family and friends in case you like the content, right? So to begin with, the first sign of Aries. For Aries, this transit shall happen in the 8th house in the sign of Scorpio, right? Now Scorpio as a sign is a sign of all hidden and mysterious things. It's a sign of suddenness. The 8th house is a sign of suddenness, of something which just happens before you can understand what is happening, right? And it is also a house which is very, very difficult to understand. It's a house of mystery. That is why from the 8th house we understand all things which are difficult to understand, which require a lot of research to be understood a bit, right? So occult research, minds, and a lot of other things, right? So I've already made a video on the 8th house, and in case you want to go further and understand, you can have a look as well, right? So what happens is, when Jupiter goes into the sign of Scorpio in the 8th house for the Aries ascendant or the Aries moon sign, what happens is all the 8th house significations expand. So your chances of going through any kind of a sudden struggle, sudden problem or sudden gain increases, right? There could be a sudden accident, there could be a sudden injury which might require some sort of a surgery as well, right? So one needs to be very careful with regard to their physical body, with regard to their health. Also 8th house, as we all know, is your partner's money, so you need to be very careful about your partner's money also. They could be, depending on the overall placement of the planets in your chart, this placement could actually increase your partner's money, or there could be something sudden which comes up with regards to your partner's money as well, right? There could be a chance of inheritance also. So 8th house Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio could expand all these things. From the 8th house, Jupiter shall be aspecting the 2nd house directly, and it shall be aspecting the 12th and the 4th house also. So when it aspects the 2nd house, there could be expansion in your family, there could be increase in your family wealth, right? There could be addition of a new member, there could be a wedding in your family which calls for addition of a new member, etc. There could be increase in your wealth. When it aspects the 12th house with this 5th aspect, there could be high chances of fun traveling towards pilgrimages. Okay, so it could be you take up certain trips to places where you haven't been before, where you have been thinking of going. In case you are very spiritually inclined, you want to take some long term voyage towards some place. And it is also a very good time for those who are spiritually inclined to invest their time and effort into spiritual practices. You could do meditation on a daily basis, you could build up on your spiritual knowledge, because Jupiter from the sign of Scorpio, Jupiter again, as I mentioned, is in a friendly sign. So Scorpio is owned by Mars, and Jupiter and Mars are friends. So it's in a friendly sign. From here, Jupiter is aspecting the 12th sign, that is Pisces, its own sign. And it is also aspecting the 4th house of Cancer for the Aries ascendant, and Cancer is the sign where Jupiter exalts. So in a way, the Moksha Trikona is totally activated. So one needs to really encash on this time for spiritual growth, I would say. Also, with the 9th aspect which Jupiter has, it shall aspect the 4th house. So this could bring in some growth with respect to your property. There could be a new vehicle which you might purchase. This could also be a crucial time for your mother. Your overall comforts, overall sources of happiness could actually increase as well, right? Now coming to the next sign, that is the sign of Taurus. For Taurus, Jupiter shall be in the 7th house in the sign of Scorpio. Now from here it shall aspect the 1st house, that is the Lagna. It shall aspect the 11th house with the 5th aspect, that is the house of your social circle, of your elder siblings, etc. And also the 3rd house, that is the house of your younger siblings, your Parakram Sthan as well, right? So from here, for Taurus people, the overall transit would be good, because Jupiter once first of all comes in the Kendra, which is good, right? And it comes in the house of marriage and the house of partnership. So those people who are looking at getting married, who are looking at converting some relationship into marriage, this could be a good time. Okay, those who are looking for alliances, marriage alliances, again you might find your life partner during this year, right? And those who are looking at expanding their who are looking at fulfilling their desires. There are certain things which you have kept pending for long, there are certain things which were not coming your way for so long. This could be a good time. Jupiter could actually help you fulfill your desires, fulfill your wishes, right? Your social circle could expand. Also, on the other side, Jupiter could actually increase your efforts, right? So it could increase your efforts in the way of by the way of short term travels. So if you are in a business, you might be traveling a lot now for the next 1 year, so that you can keep up with your business, you can add more to your business, etc. Right? So that is about it for Taurus. It's a very favorable transit for Taurus, I would say. Coming next to the sign of Gemini. Now for Gemini, Jupiter shall be transiting into the 6th house, right? 6th house, as we all know, is the house of enemies, it's the house of disease, of deaths. It's a Uchchesthan, so a little difficult to tackle, right? From here it shall aspect the 12th house, it shall aspect the house of Karm, your Karm Sthan, and also the second house of family money, family wealth, speech, etc. So this transit has to be watched out carefully. One needs to be very careful with this transit, because it could increase your health issues. There could be problems related to health, so one needs to be very careful with the daily routine also. Okay, and expenses could increase, because Jupiter from a Trik Bhava is looking at the house of expense, the 12th house. So expenses could be on the rise again because of health issues. Okay, then Jupiter would be aspecting the 10th house, that is the house of profession, your house of karma. So at work your efforts could increase, you could get more involved into work. But my advice would be that you need to be a little careful when it comes to work, when it comes to your workplace, because there could be increase in opposition at work also. It also aspects the second house of family wealth, of family money, of your speech, right? So you could be tempted to speak a lot, you could be tempted to say what you want to immediately, but you need to be a little careful as to what you speak, how you conduct yourself, right? So overall mixed results, and one needs to be careful. Gemini ascendant especially needs to be quite careful and cautious. Okay, then we come down to the sign of Cancer. Now for the sign of Cancer, Jupiter shall be moving into a Trikona, into a trine, right? So for the sign of Cancer, whether it's your moon sign or it's your ascendant, Jupiter moving into the sign of Scorpio is the 5th house for you, right? So from here it aspects the Lagna, it aspects the 11th house, it aspects the 9th house also, right? So a very, very favorable time for Cancer, because in case you are going through some sort of a difficulty, some sort of a physical ailment, Jupiter from the 5th aspect, from the 9th aspect shall give you some relief. It shall also help you in fulfilling your desires, because again it is aspecting the 11th house. Those who are looking at having a child, those who are looking at conceiving, this is a good time again, because Jupiter in the 5th house could again work out favorably for you. Those who are looking at completing their higher education or traveling abroad, this is again a good time. Those who are looking at those who are in search of a guru or a good teacher to help them out in their life, this could again be a good time. So overall the transit of Jupiter into the sign of Cancer would be good, right? And now coming down to the sign of Leo. For Leo, this transit shall be in the house of in the 4th house, in the sign of Scorpio, and from here Jupiter shall be aspecting directly the Karma Sthan, that is your 10th house. It shall be aspecting the 12th house and the 8th house also. So from here what happens is there could be some loss of peace of mind, because Jupiter, though is in the Kendra, it is aspecting the 12th house, it is aspecting the 8th house. So these significations could increase, because 2 Trik Bhavas are getting activated by the aspect of Jupiter, right? So there could be some issues related to inheritance, insurance, your partner's money. Okay, also there could be, on the other hand, you could see some expenses coming out, sudden expenses, right? So one needs to be a little careful because of this entire transit. But on the other side, on a little positive note, Jupiter could expand your work. So if you're in that phase of life where you're looking at expanding your work, expanding your business, this could be a good time, because your 10th house is getting aspected by Jupiter directly, right? And now coming down to the sign of Virgo. For Virgo, this transit shall be in the 3rd house, right? And from here Jupiter shall be aspecting the 9th house, it shall be aspecting the 11th house and the 7th house, right? So what happens is your social circle could increase, right? Because Jupiter directly aspecting from the 3rd house, first of all, your short term journeys would increase, your relationship with your siblings, there could be a lot of focus on that, your relationship with your neighbors, all these things get activated and come into play. Okay, your social circle increases, your relationship with your elder siblings also comes into play. Okay, then those who are looking, especially those who are in the travel business, you could find a lot of activity during this entire transit, because your 3rd house and your 9th house both will be activated, right? So Jupiter shall increase your chances of travel a lot. Then your 7th house is also getting aspected, which shall bring in some relief. So those looking at getting married or those looking at cementing some sort of a partnership in business could also gain, right? Then comes the sign of Libra. Now for Libra, the transit shall be happening, the movement of Jupiter shall be in their 2nd house, right? And from there Jupiter shall be aspecting the 8th house directly, the 6th house and the 10th house. So all these significations start coming into play. One, Jupiter transiting into the 2nd house could actually increase your family money, there could be some gain there. Jupiter is also aspecting your 8th house, so in case there is some matter related to inheritance, etc., it might again come into light. Okay, you have to be a little careful regarding your health as well, because Jupiter is moving into the Marak Sthan, that is the 2nd house, right? And Jupiter is also aspecting the 6th house of enemies, of diseases, of deaths, etc. So try avoiding borrowing from anybody, because you could end up in a long term debt. Try avoiding getting into any direct confrontation with anybody, because you could be actually investing in a good enemy here, right? Also on the professional front, this could bring in a little relief. So if you're looking at solving your professional issues, solving your professional problems, your boss could be helping you out here. Somebody up the chain might just help you out over here, and you could find some relief with this transit. Okay, now coming down to the sign of Scorpio. So as we all know, for Scorpio, again this will be the transit in the 1st house, in the ascendant itself, right? And Scorpio is owned by Mars. Mars and Jupiter are friends. Mars and Jupiter, in fact, when they conjoin together, just otherwise I would like to add that when they conjoin together in any house, they produce Guru Mangal Yoga, which is a very, very good yoga as well. Okay, so for the sign of Scorpio, Jupiter transits through the ascendant, aspects the 5th house, 7th house and 9th house, which is a very favorable transit, because from the with its 7th aspect, it aspects the sign of Taurus. Again, a lot of focus on your relationships, focus on your marriage. Those who are looking at getting married, again get a good chance for matrimony, matrimonial alliances. Those who are looking at having or planning a family or conception, your chances could also go up. And again, those who are into higher studies, into professions related to travel, into professions related to studies, higher studies, etc., or if you're trying to complete your PhD, you're trying to complete your masters, etc., this is again a very, very favorable time, right? So the transit of Jupiter into the sign of Scorpio, especially when your moon sign or your ascendant is Scorpio, is going to be a very, very favorable transit, but you need to take care of your health a little bit. Okay, now talking about the sign of Sagittarius. For Sagittarius ascendant or moon sign, the transit happens in the 12th house of Scorpio, And from the 12th house, Jupiter aspects the 6th house directly. It aspects the 8th house and the 4th house, right? So it is aspecting two Trik Bhavas from the 12th house. So one needs to be careful. One needs to be careful regarding health. If we look at it the other way around, this could also provide some relief with regard to your health, because Jupiter is directly aspecting the house of disease, house of your daily routine. So it could bring in some relief over there. Jupiter is aspecting the 8th house again, so your partner's money could be on the rise. There could be some expansion over there. You have to be careful about certain events happening also. So be very careful of accidents, of sudden injuries, etc. Okay, and Jupiter is also aspecting the 4th house. So the 4th house is, again, as I said, it's your Suksthan, the house of comfort, right? So you could for all these months that you were running around and trying to make ends meet, this transit could bring in some peace of mind, some relief. Okay, so you might get to spend some more time at home. You could there could be some more time spent with your mother, right? You could be looking at investing into a new property, or buying a new car, or maybe renovating your own house, etc. Right? So this is a mixed this will give mixed results for people with Sagittarius ascendant or moon sign. Okay, now coming down to the next sign, that is Capricorn. For Capricorn, this transit shall happen in the 11th house of Scorpio. So from there, Jupiter shall be aspecting the 5th house, the 3rd house and the 7th house. So your efforts could increase on a daily basis, right? So short journeys, business travel, all that could increase considerably, and all this shall happen for your betterment, for fulfilling your desires, because for Capricorn ascendant, this is a good transit in your 11th house, right? So your social circle expands, your since you are engaged in business all the time, you bring in more money, you bring in more profits. Your luck also supports you, right? Those who are again looking at conceiving, or looking at planning a family, expanding their family, this is again a good time. Those who already have children, this is a good time, because their children could progress well, right? So these aspects get magnified again. And why am I talking about Jupiter and the chances of progeny and children? Because Jupiter is a very strong karaka for progeny, right? So Jupiter's aspect on the 5th house is very important when your chances of having progeny, chances of having children is to be seen. So it's a very important significator, right? Now coming to the 11th sign, that is the sign of Aquarius. Now for this, Jupiter transits into the 10th house, that is in the sign of Scorpio. From there it aspects the 4th house directly, it aspects the 6th house and the 2nd house also. So your professional issues take a boost, your money takes a boost, there could be chances of growth, because your 2nd house again forms a trine with the 10th house, and your at the same point in time you need to be a little careful regarding your health, right? So you could be facing any health issues which might need correction, which might come into light now, right? So health needs to be seen properly. Your mental peace, your domestic peace again gets highlighted. You might get some occasions to be at home, spend time at home, etc. But Jupiter's aspect on the 6th house with the 9th aspect needs to be taken care of. You need to be careful. So be very careful, do not get into any arguments, do not get into any unnecessary confrontations with people around you, at workplace, etc. Right? Because this could pose problems. Do not get into any unnecessary borrowing or lending also. right? Now coming down to the next sign, that is the sign of Pisces. For the sign of Pisces, this is again an auspicious transit, because Jupiter shall be moving into their trine, into the ninth house. Okay, from there it aspects the first house, the ninth house and the third house, right? So these houses get activated. So the entire trine, you know, first, fifth and ninth, they are all activated. So they bring you some relief physically, they bring you some relief mentally, and they give you some relief overall. You know, you could feel that things are moving in your favor. Your efforts are also bearing some good results now. For Pisces especially, because till now the transit was in the 8th house, and 8th house, as we all know, is the transit of Jupiter in the 8th house is not not considered very good. From the 8th house moving on to the 9th house, all these the self, the luck factor, the efforts, all these things get highlighted, and you could see the benefits coming your way. Okay, so that's all for all the 12 signs. In case you have any queries, in case you feel like discussing something, do not forget to drop in a comment or to mail me personally as well, and I'll be really glad to answer. Right then, see ya, God bless, bye bye.